for calling. I didn't hear you. Darien Fenton. Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, that was an interesting contribution from the member for Mangakirikir, because may I tell him that I know many of the union members that work in Mangakirikir. In fact, I've represented them for many, many years, and I can tell you, I can name them, in fact, workers from Sanitarium who were prevented from joining the union for years and years and years, the workers from Coca-Cola who would not have a bar of this bill, the workers from Pinot Ricard in his electorate, the rest home workers, the cleaners, the school cleaners and caretakers. Come on, because this is another kick in the guts for workers. That's what it is. It's another Christmas present from the National Act Māori Party government to the workers of New Zealand. Happy Christmas. First it was increases to low-paid workers, then it was cuts to KiwiSaver. And now it's the recycled, hand-me-down Wayne Map bill being dredged up from the dark ages of Don Brash and his cohorts, as some kind of economic silver bullet. The answer to New Zealand's economic problems is to be able to sack workers more easily. Hey, come on. Is that what ambitious for New Zealand means? Is that what John Key meant? Now, the new minister, Kate Wilkinson, is not ambitious. She's got the ministerial warrant, she's got the BMW, she's got the big house and the huge pay increase. And she's showing how unambitious she is for New Zealand workers. The first thing she does in her job is to cut their rights, and she does it under urgency. Well, I say that's a disgrace. In the last Parliament, Mr. Speaker, Kate Wilkinson railed against urgency when Labour closed a loophole, the KiwiSaver loophole, through an SOP, which this bill, of course, opens up again. What she said then is this, very sanctimoniously, actually, this amendment has not been subject to proper scrutiny, it has not been subject to consultation, it's not been subject to scrutiny by the Transport and Industrial Relations Committee. The public have not been permitted to submit on it and to give their views. She said, I have to say that I think it's a sad, sad day for democracy in this country. I think it's a disgrace and abusive process. Well, hello, Minister. Mr. Speaker, it seems that it's a disgrace and abusive process when Labour tries to improve workers' rights, but when National and ACT and the Māori Party want to actually take away workers' rights, it's not an abusive process, it's just getting on with fixing the economic problems of the country. May I say, Mr. Speaker, the government is right about one thing. These issues were debated in the last payment via Wayne Mapp's members' bill, but let's not forget that bill was defeated. It was defeated after submitter came along. 527 of them came along and said, no, we don't want this in New Zealand. And workers marched and rallied in opposition. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, that's why this is being rushed through under urgency. Perhaps that's why that's happening, because the National Act Māori Party government don't want to see workers rallying before Christmas. That would be embarrassing. That would remind the people of the government of people of New Zealand of the real agenda of the government that they've elected. Mr. Speaker, the Māori Party were forced to abandon their support for Wayne Mapp's bill after they saw the opposition to it. And it's good they're not supporting this bill, but I have to say to the Māori Party it's a meaningless gesture. It's pretty meaningless, actually, because the Māori Party had a chance in their confidence and supply agreement with the National Party to make gains for workers. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You could have ensured that this bill never again saw the light of day. So I'm not that impressed with the Māori Party's opposition, especially after yesterday when they voted for tax increases for low-paid workers and KiwiSaver cuts for the same workers. What's so offensive, Mr. Speaker, are the excuses for this bill, that the young, the brown, the women, the imprisoned, the migrants will be better off because they're so hopeless. They don't deserve the same rights as other workers. And because it will be even easier to sack them, employers are very kindly going to take a risk on giving them a job. Well, I have to say the workers I've talked to are very offended by that. The Filipino workers group, for example, says this bill will open the doors to further exploitation of vulnerable migrant workers, and it's nothing to do with improving their job opportunities. Vulnerable workers, Mr Speaker, often have a limited knowledge of workplace rights, and in workplaces like restaurants, like rest homes, like shops, like cleaning services, many of the jobs that the Pacific people that the member opposite was referring to have to do, the myriad of other small firms throughout New Zealand, are not in a position to agree or disagree on a trial period without rights. Hasn't the opposition heard of take it or leave it? Here you go, you agree with this, if you want the job, you sign up to it, or you don't have the job. That's how it works. That's what you'll see. Mr Speaker, I thought a fundamental human right was equality before the law. I thought that's what we stood up for in this country, and yesterday was the 60th anniversary of human rights, and that's a fundamental right. What this bill does is create an underclass of workers in an area where rights are probably much more vital. Small workplaces often have very inexperienced managers or supervisors. They have high turnover, they're low paid, and they can be high stress. And in such a situation, instead of trying to sort things out with a probationary employee, instead of trying to give them a genuine go, managers who are busy are going to say, off you go, down the road, it's too hard. And under this bill, all they have to do is call it unjustified dismissal. Now, I know there's provision for mediation, but it's meaningless. It means nothing. It's a talk fest. It goes nowhere. The worker has no rights with that. And, you know, the other excuse that we've heard for this bill is that every other OECD country has probationary provisions. Yes, they do, but so does New Zealand. So does New Zealand. And, you know, these other things, you should look at these other countries, the opposition should look at these other countries, because actually they have many other rights that New Zealanders don't have. For example, they still get penal rates and weekend rates, they get redundancy pay, overtime pay, and I'm looking forward to the opposition proposing that we should have redundancy, minimum redundancy, as indeed that Labour was proposing in its policy. And I'm still waiting, and we all are, to hear more about the government's Restart relief package to help those workers hit by redundancy. Mr Keys said in his speech that this package will be carefully targeted and designed to help people who have worked hard and who have big aspirations for the future, but who will be, through no fault of their own, coping with a big financial blow. So if a worker's been through a 90-day process and got the sack, have they worked hard? Did they qualify as working hard? If they're sacked, is it through no fault of their own? I mean, I'd really genuinely like to know the answer to that question, Minister. Do they qualify as having big aspirations for the future? You know, will they get relief, or will they be consigned to looking for another job on a 90-day cycle, you know, in this sort of hopeless spiral to the bottom? Now, we on this side of the House are very opposed to the bill. We've outlined it, but, you know, the other thing is taking away the economic livelihood of workers should never be done lightly or unfairly. Being sacked impacts on workers. It impacts on their families, it impacts on their confidence and their future employment prospects. What does a worker in this situation say to their next employer at the interview? Oh, well, sorry, I got sacked, but it's only because of the 90-day probation bill, so it wasn't really being sacked, it wasn't really unfair. Or do they have to sign up for yet another 90-day cycle with the next period, and the next after that? On we go. Now, the member Sue Bradford raised some very important questions. She referred to the page on page 9 of the explanatory note and the real agenda of the National Party, which is to extend this provision to all other workers after review. Fine print, but there's also more to come. We know what the National Party agenda is. You know, they want to have non-union collective agreements, they want to restrict unions having access to rights, they want to cash up the 4 weeks leave, they want to review the Holidays Act, they want to privatise ACC. So let no one have any doubt this is the first shot in an ongoing attack on New Zealand workers. Nice one, Minister.